Greetings, everyone. Welcome to D Green with Amy. I'm Amy. After adopting a whole food plant-based lifestyle, my hubby Rick and I lost over 130 pounds. Now I coach others on their plant-based journey. Just Task Voice. Let's welcome our guest.
Founder of Have Lifelong Wellbeing, Eileen Kopsaftis is a chronic pain expert, nutrition educator, and author of the best-selling book, Pain Culprits. Please click like to help Be Green with Amy. Welcome, Eileen Kopsaftis.
Welcome, Green Warrior, and welcome back, Eileen.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here, Amy. I just adore what you do, and I'm thrilled to be able to share this with your audience and hope it'll help a lot of people.
Oh, we love having you on the show, and Eileen's been on few broadcasts with us, and you can check on the links that I'll provide in the show notes. Green Warrior, do you struggle with painful bunions? Well, today Eileen's going to tell us about what you can do about bunions and possibly even reverse them. Wow, that's a big deal. I'm really excited about that, Eileen. Did you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
I started researching this. I mean, my profession, as you may be aware, is physical therapy. And I believe that there's a lot of things that, and I kind of call it conventional physical therapy, sort of misses the boat on. And a lot of that has to do with something we were talking about earlier, that we're isolating different body parts in different issues, and we're going after the symptoms of that specific thing. However, the entire body is usually involved, especially if it's something that's chronic, and because everything's connected to everything else, which is sort of the theme throughout my book, Pain Culprits. And when people get that, when they hear that, it resonates with them. They're, oh my gosh, yeah, that makes sense. I know, and they'll know this because they'll go to a conventional PT or some other pain specialist, and that person sees them as a knee that walks in the door or a big toe that walks in the door, if we're talking about bunions. And we need to understand how everything's connected. So I think it's important that when people hear things that make sense and then they start to apply it and they see change, like what you and your husband did with food, when you see success, it really motivates you to keep going. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do that today. But with this particular topic, to circle back to your question, my profession teaches a lot of stuff about, what can we do to resolve the pain? Can we treat the pain? And so they'll use a lot of modalities. They'll do their best to provide education on the right shoe wear and how to maybe change their gait slightly if they can, those kind of things. Well, my training is a little bit different. I've had a lot of training in biomechanics of the body. I've taken courses that you'd kind of consider them a PhD in biomechanics, which means how the joints move and function and how they impact each other. I can tell you how your toe off of your gait can impact your neck function. So, everything's connected. And the interesting part is this has, as far as I know, has not been utilized addressing this topic of bunions. And there are some experts out there. I've been doing a deep dive in the research. I do not profess to know everything. I always say I'm not all that brilliant. I'm just really gifted at finding brilliant people and learning what they know. And so I've been seeking out brilliant people on this topic now for several weeks. And I am going to be presenting an event next week, which is free, which I'm going to show people how they can register for that if they'd like. But there are experts who say they've been reversing bunions in their patients for years. And so I started doing a deep dive into all of this, and I want to present some of that today. Obviously, this could be a 4-day seminar, so I've sort of encapsulated it into a brief sort of a bullet listed presentation, but to sort of give a well-rounded presentation so people can understand what can cause it, what do they say causes it, and what really causes it, and what are the conventional treatments, and what are the unknown causes, and what do I recommend, some strategies. So, and then I'd like to finish by going downstairs in my basement and showing people a couple of movements that they can train their body in, a way to assess, what's going on with my foot and ankle? Is that what's the word, promoting a poor gait that can sort of lead into a bunion, or is there something I can do to change that and make my gait better to keep the bunion from getting worse? I mean, I want to address a few things today. So I know I just said a mouthful, but hopefully everybody's going to be excited and want to see this.
Well, I'm excited about it because I know a lot of people are affected by this and they don't know what they're doing wrong. And we're taught with this plant-based lifestyle, hey, just eat good food, you'll reduce inflammation and everything will go well. But that's why you come on the show, because you're here to say that's good, but, right?
Yeah, that's the first step. I mean, obviously, arthritis and chronic joint pain and all of those things are very much food related. Absolutely. And I use this sort of 4-prong approach, and the most important prong first is the food. You got to get the food right. But if somebody's got a bunion and it hurts and they've been on a whole food plant-based diet for 4 years, telling them to eat more broccoli isn't going to fix their bunion. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you're expert in fixing a lot of different problems that are caused by not just inflammation, but by just the mechanics. So
Correct.
you're the mechanic of the body here.
Yeah. If you fell out of a tree when you were 4, something might be off. If you fell off your bike when you were 12, something might be off. And a lot of different issues occur. And of course, a lot of us didn't eat well when we were younger. Everybody's unique like a fingerprint, but a lot of the times when people do these general things that really work to restore function in the body, they'll see success. So.
Well, excellent. Okay. Well, I'm really excited because you have a wonderful presentation for us. And then, like you said, a little bit later, you're going to go down to your gym and you're actually going to demonstrate things for us that will be helpful too. So this is going to be a really great presentation. So why don't you just go ahead and begin, Eileen?
All right. Sounds good. So you've got my slides up. There we are. Thank you. All right. So are bunions reversible? And the whole point of my profession, my calling, if you will, is to teach those little known truths and to dispel those myths that are out there, because I want people to be able to resolve pain and age really stinking well, is how I put it. I just submitted my second book to the publisher yesterday on aging. And I want everybody to live to at least 112 like I want to do and feel really good about it. That's the goal. So all of these little things in life tend to suck the joy out of life. And it's hard to age well when you're struggling with these. So I want to start with this one. So are bunions reversible? Well, the first thing I want to share with everyone is when you understand authentic human movement. And what I mean by authentic is not some of the weird stuff we do at a gym, using the machines, isolating things, doing those supinated bicep curls. That might build bicep muscle, but it tends to promote tendinitis, tendinosis, all those things that we don't want to experience in life because it's not authentic. It's not how the body is actually designed to function. The body never wants us to isolate any body part because everything is designed to work as a team. Think about it. If you're on an airplane and you're going to put a heavy suitcase up overhead in the overhead compartment, you're not going to say, okay, I better keep my elbows bent at 90 degrees. I better keep them in. I better only use my tricep. I can't use any other muscle in my body to do this work. Would we do that? No. So why do we do that in the gym? Kind of crazy. So when you understand authentic human movement, it will lead to better training choices and you will end up with improved results. That's key. So I want to start right off with this so everybody can jot this down. If they're interested in registering, it's absolutely free. It is what I'm calling a bunion challenge next week, just 1 hour a day for 3 days. I'm going to do my best to teach on this topic in a way where people will kind of have a good understanding about what's known and not known about the causes and what's known and not known about what actually works to improve it. And I'm still doing my research, but I am going to show definitively that bunions can be reversible. If there's one thing that you can do with that toe, it can be reversible. It might take a while, but it can be reversible. So please join me next week if you're interested in this topic. And even if you don't have bunions, if you want to make sure you never end up with them, it might be a good idea. And I'm going to teach on the mechanics of the foot. You don't have to be a physiology expert to understand. I'm going to do my best to make it very general and make sense to you. And I always have to have this disclaimer because I don't want anyone doing anything that they know they shouldn't be doing, or they're not sure they should be doing, and end up hurting themselves, because I'm not in your living room. I'm not in your, wherever you are watching this. And I don't want you to do anything that you should not do that could cause you harm. So I always tell everyone, when you do something in repetition, it should always feel confident and competent and successful. That's key. Without pain, no pain. All right. So just to bore you a little bit with the statistics of bunions, in case you're wondering why talk about this, 25% of the population get these in both sides. And then depending on which statistics you look at, 48% of adults, with a greater prevalence in women. And yes, even children get this, which is why they're saying that there's a genetic predisposition for this, which I'll talk about in a moment. But an increase in the severity of, it's called hallux valgus because of the terms, the anatomy terms, or bunion deformity. It is seen to progressively reduce both general and foot-specific health-related quality of life. So it affects our gait. It's very embarrassing. Nobody wants to sit on the beach with these bunions and toes coming over, hammer toes, and all kinds of things that can happen. And as you can see, 65 million Americans alone are affected by a bunion deformity. That's huge. And some of what's seen associated with it, it doesn't say it's causing it. We don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but hypermobility of the first ray and excessive foot pronation are associated with hallux valgus. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of foot pronation, but hypermobility of the first ray, you've got 5 bones. One goes to each one of your toes. And the first ray is the big bone in the foot that goes to the big toe. So they're talking about that bone being a little bit too mobile is seen, and then excessive foot pronation, which I'll show in a moment. So I'm going to briefly cover causes, treatments, strategies that you can apply, and training at the end of this about bunions. Now, these are commonly reported causes. These are the things that no matter what website you go on, you're going to find this list somewhere. It might be a couple of other things maybe that aren't on there, but for the most part, this is the 4 biggies. Footwear. It's a commonly reported cause, and I'm going to show you some pictures of why that is. Footwear does not match the shape of our foot unless you're buying foot-shaped shoes. Literally the title, foot-shaped shoe. There's a difference between wide shoes and foot-shaped shoes, and I'm going to show you that soon as well. And then genetics. They're saying that this is inherited. They haven't found the gene for it yet. And then excessive pronation, which I'm going to show you, and tight calf muscles. And why would tight calf muscles happen? Well, I'll show you that too. So when it comes to footwear, toes need room. You can see this sweet little baby's feet here, nice and wide. Do you notice that the toes are pretty much the widest part of the foot? This would be the second widest part, but the toes are wider. Do our shoes look like that? Well, they do when we're little, but footwear changes from baby to adult. Why? Now, look at this for the baby. Nice, straight out where that big toe comes out, right across, lots of room for those toes to wiggle around in and to spread around in if that little one is put on their feet. But look at this. Even the kids, that's pretty wide there. It's pretty straight coming out from the big toe. But look at the difference as it gets to a bigger size. Look at how that angles in where that big toe is. For even a man's dress shoe, look how it angles in, and it gets pretty pointed toward the end. Even though this would be considered a square toe, it still angles in, and it's much smaller here than it is here where the toes are. And the same thing here in dress shoes. We're all very aware of this, but look at how that angles in. Your foot is not shaped like that at all. So why does our footwear change? Well, a lot of people think it looks more attractive. I've actually heard women say that if a shoe doesn't hurt, it's not pretty, which is kind of scary and sad. And so, yes, everybody likes to wear nice looking shoes, even men, I'm sure, when they're dressed up. Even kids, they want those fancy sneakers that everybody's wearing, but is it harming our feet? Now, I will say this. If footwear was the causative factor, then everyone would have bunions because everyone's wearing shoes that go tiny into the toes. Well, I shouldn't say everyone. There's a small percentage of the population who are wearing foot-shaped shoes. But also, you may not be aware of this, but there are countries where people don't wear shoes and they can get bunions. It's rare, but it can happen. So if they're not wearing shoes and they get bunions, then it can't be the shoes doing it. And then the last question to ask yourself is, well, I only have a bunion on my right foot. I'm guessing you're wearing the same shoes on both feet. I mean, yeah, you got a right shoe and a left shoe, but it's going to be the same shoe. So why does it only happen on one foot? So there's a lot to consider here. Now, if you already have bunions, and especially painful bunions, then these shoes would be your nemesis. They would not be something you would want to wear at all, ever. So just a thought. All right, genetics. Do we actually inherit bunions? Well, you see here where I say model gait with a question mark? This is the interesting part. And then, of course, what I just talked about with shoes is the same thing with genetics. If you've only got a bunion on one foot instead of both feet, how on earth can you inherit it on just one side? That doesn't make sense. Hopefully everyone would agree with me and you're nodding your head up and down. But if you've got them on both feet and your grandmother had them on both feet and your mother has them on both feet, and you can go up through the lineage, you're just assuming that it's genetics. You've got, well, what happens is we can inherit a particular skeletal shape and size. So maybe, wide feet, or how some people have the second toe is longer than the big toe, or they've got what we call Fred Flintstone feet, where the toes are all kind of even across, those kind of things. You can inherit that, not necessarily the bunion. Now, does that make people more prone to develop a bunion? And then also we've got this model gait thing. If you've ever seen a child walk behind a grandparent and they're paying attention to that grandparent, and that's a beloved grandparent, they'll start to mimic how that grandparent is moving and walking. Say the grandparent walks with his hands behind his back and his head down, and he's kind of doing a duck walk kind of a thing. Well, you'll see a little boy behind grandpa doing the same thing.
I think about Asians. Many times I see them shuffle their feet when they walk. And then I see their little ones toddling around, shuffling their feet.
Absolutely.
Never thought about that.
Absolutely. Children watch everything. That's why they say, make sure you're being a good model for a child, because they see everything you do.
They may not listen, but they're watching.
That's for sure. They're watching. And they'll follow facial expressions, mannerisms, characteristics, and gait. So who's to say, and I'm going to show everybody when we get downstairs, and I'll show you a picture in a moment of how if you walk with your toes turned out, that's going to kind of promote a bunion, because the big toe is going to have to get pushed out of the way because of how the foot is angled. So there's a lot of complexities to this. But I really don't believe that we can blame it on genetics, because genetics is what's in your DNA. It's what's in your genes. Modeling something, copying something, having a similar body type that might make you more prone for something isn't necessarily genetics. So, I know I might be splitting hairs there a little bit, but I really think that's it. Nobody's found a gene for bunions. So, and then some studies suggest that the congenital and the juvenile bunions, so congenital, they're very, very young, juvenile bunions may be related to joint deformities that could potentially have a genetic cause. But as you can see here, the big word may be. It hasn't been proven or shown. And then one study, 90% of people with bunions had a family history of the condition, passed down through generations, but that was one study. Other studies, no specific gene that causes bunions. And little is known about the genetic contribution to bunions that develop later in life. Maybe you don't get them until you're 50 or 60, or maybe when you're 35. So upon the extensive research, the firm answer to the question, are bunions genetic, is no. Bunions are not genetic. Even though this has sparked a lot of debates among the researchers and the medical professionals, it is clear that lifestyle factors, notably footwear, foot structure. You can inherit foot structure, not the bunion. And then the movement patterns, like we just talked about, they can play a much larger role in bunion formation. So now it has been observed that wearing those tight, narrow, high-heeled shoes can lead to bunions, which signifies a strong influence of lifestyle choices, but equally specific foot structures like flat feet, low arches, that can contribute to bunion development. And that has to do with the biomechanics that I'm going to share before we're done here. But, these aspects aren't linked to genetics. They're associated with that individual lifestyle choices and physiology. And then those certain movement patterns, like we talked about, they're copying the grandparent. You'll get some excessive pressure and friction on the big toe joint, like activities that cause repetitive foot stress. That can contribute to bunions. Now, it's crucial to note it's not the activity itself that's causing the bunion, but the way the activity is carried out. So this is why we really need a holism approach. T. Colin Campbell wrote the book Whole, W-H-O-L-E, and he talked about holism when it comes to nutrition. Well, we need that approach when it comes to this topic and pretty much every other topic that the human body struggles with when it comes to pain and chronic conditions. So we want to address those lifestyle factors. We want to do prevention. We want to look at foot structure. We want to look at movement patterns. And of course, footwear choices. So very, very important. And I already talked about all this lifestyle factors. Ill-fitting shoes can put abnormal stress on the big toe joint, which I showed you a picture of the shoes. And that can lead to instability and formation. And women are 10 times more likely to get bunions than men. I'm thinking it's got a lot to do with the shoe choices. So hopefully we've kind of driven this home, widely accepted, that those who follow the research say bunions are not genetic. That is significantly influenced by these other three things: what you wear on your feet, the structure of your feet, and how you move. Okay, ankle function, specifically excessive pronation and tight calf muscles. These are two other things that are on that list that you'll see when you look on all the websites. So what is a pronated foot? What is excessive pronation? You can see here, there's no arch. This is what you call a flat foot. That is an unhealthy structure of a foot. And you can see here, this one is a little bit flatter than this one. It's kind of dropped down a lot. This one is still pretty flat, but this is going to cause an issue. Now, you can see the term excessive pronation. It's very important that your foot is able to pronate, but come out of that pronation at the right time, the right way. That's key. And you can improve your arches through training and movement. Now, genetically, you may have inherited a foot structure that's more prone to have this happen. But again, it really may not be genetics. There may be some other component that we have yet to discover, but excessive pronation is seen to a lot of the times when somebody has bunions, they have excessive pronation, but not always. They don't always come together. And then tight calf muscles. What causes tight calf muscles? I always want to know what's causing these things. This is very important to me. When somebody comes in with a diagnosis of tendinitis, I want to know what caused the tendon to become inflamed and irritated and annoyed. There's something going on mechanically. Sure, we can treat the inflammation. You can take anti-inflammatories. We can use ultrasound and hot packs and all kinds of topicals and all kinds of other things. But how about if we figure out what caused it in the first place and address that? I think that's the answer. Well, tight calf muscles. What's causing the tight calf muscles? If you're wearing a high heel, you are shortening your calf muscle. It has to shorten because your heel is up. It's like you're walking around on your tiptoes. Now, we know how to strengthen calves by pushing up on our toes, lifting our heel. That strengthens the calf. But if you're staying in that position for lengthy periods, it's shortening the calf and it's staying short. And then when you get out of the heels, you may notice, oh my gosh, my feet hurt. You'll notice all these other things happen because now all of a sudden you're asking those calves to get longer again, and they're not happy about it because they've been short for so long. So there's a lot to that. I could teach on that for 3 hours, but we'll move on. Okay, mostly unknown causes. I say mostly because not everyone is trained in this. And when you go to seek out professional help for different issues, whoever you seek out, and I want you to consider this, they can only teach you what they know. They can't teach what they don't know. And there are a lot of professions out there that are not taught whole body biomechanics. There are very few professions actually that are taught whole body biomechanics. So, even an orthopedic surgeon, he's really good at what he does. And there's one surgeon in our area. He's the only one I would ever recommend to anybody. The guy is fabulous. I mean, the results of his surgeries are amazing. We get them at the end, right after they see the surgeon. I know what surgeons I wouldn't recommend people to go see, and I know which ones I would. So, but that's what they do. They do surgery, they do injections. They recommend people to go to therapy or whatever. But whole body biomechanics, you'd be hard put to find an orthopedist that could explain the contribution of the ankle to neck function when you walk. But I can explain that to you in a way that makes sense. And you'd be like, huh, yeah, that makes sense. But they're not taught that. So that's why I say this is mostly unknown. This picture down here, this is 3-plane function. We move in 3 planes of motion, which is why we don't look like robots, unless you want to dance like my favorite dancer, Fiction, and so you think you can dance. You're not going to look like a robot when you move. So we move in 3 planes. One of them, we move forward, we bend forward, and we bend backward, or we lift our arms up forward or backward, or our legs swing forward when we walk or go behind us when we walk. And then we move side to side. That's another plane of motion. And that, you're going to bend sideways, or your arms are going to come out. Like when you make a snow angel, that's the frontal plane motion when you're making the snow angel with the wings and all of that. And then the 3rd plane is turning or transverse. That's rotation. You rotate right, you rotate left, your arms rotate, your shoulders rotate, which is the most mobile joint in your body. Your hips rotate, which is the 2nd most mobile joint in the body, but it's weight bearing. So it's got a whole nother job to do. And so those hip biomechanics are huge. And ankle and hip very much interact with each other, influence each other, impact each other. And if one's not right, the other one can't be right because of that interaction that's required, especially when you walk or run. So really important. And so if you go and they're just addressing your big toe, they're not looking at the biomechanics of the ankle. They're not looking at the biomechanics of your hip. They're not watching you walk, figuring out what's working and what's not working. Then they're going to be limited in how much they can help you. They might be really good at injecting the big toe joint. They might be really good at doing a surgical correction, which may get you out of pain, but it's going to alter your gait because usually they're going to fixate it. And I didn't go deep into surgeries here. I actually, on my YouTube channel, I just recorded one for surgeries, and that'll be up soon to watch. But we just have to know that everything's connected to everything else. So when we're looking at ankle function, these are the things that the ankle does. I didn't put plantar flexion in here because plantar flexion is when you just point your toes down. And that's not hugely impactful. You can have some limited plantar flexion and it doesn't really bug you too much because we don't use that a lot, especially in weight bearing. So, but dorsiflexion is huge. That's when your heel stays down and your toes come up. Dorsiflexion is massive. Healthy dorsiflexion is anywhere from 20 to 40 degrees would be maximum. But your average person may have 5 to 10 degrees of dorsiflexion. I've worked with people who had 0. I've worked with people who have minus. Their foot is actually stuck in plantar flexion up to 5, 10 degrees even. Obviously, they're never going to have a healthy gait as long as if they don't regain that dorsiflexion. So this is huge. And a lot of people have a history of an ankle issue, a sprain when they were a kid or an injury when they were younger or sports. I've worked with a lot of people who, in sports, I was spraining my ankles all the time. It's massively impactful to your entire body. So even if you don't have any interest in bunions, pay attention to this part. If you've got shoulder pain, if you struggle to throw a baseball or throw a frisbee or swing a golf club, it could be your ankle, especially if you've got a history of of a sprain and you never regained. And you may think, but it never bothered me and I got back to life and yada, yada. But the problem is it's lacking range of motion. And the human brain is really good at compensating and hiding things. And so your brain, if you go to walk, it's not going to tell you, guess what? We can't dorsiflex very good on that right foot. So because of that, we're going to abduct the foot out. We're going to circumduct the hip, and we're going to shift the weight much quicker onto the left leg. Your brain isn't going to tell you any of that. But with step after step after step after step, those compensatory mechanisms are impacting the structures of your body. And eventually the structures that aren't designed to do that for any prolonged period start to get irritated, inflamed, annoyed, break down, even get injured. So, and then, that's what we call insidious onset. I didn't have any fall. I didn't have an injury. It just started to bother me out of the blue. Well, it was a chronic pain pattern, a chronic mechanics problem that no one ever knew about, but now it's rearing its head. So that's what happens. Eversion, that's when the heel moves out away from midline. That happens on heel strike if we've got healthy foot function. Pronation, you saw the excessive pronation, but that's when the inside of the foot drops down. And then after this whole chain reaction occurs from the foot all the way up to the neck and back down to the foot before you do a toe off, it's now switching, and you're going to get inversion, which is the heel going in, and you're going to get supination, which is riding kind of toward the outer edge of the foot, not riding on the outer edge of the foot, but aiming weight in that direction. And that's when the arch pulls up. So you've got to be able to go through all of these things with healthy ankle function in order to have a healthy gait, and in order to not have any structures complain, even all the way up to your neck. Remember, understanding that authentic movement will provide you with improved results because you're going to train more authentically. So dorsiflexion is huge. We really want to be able to land on that heel so that we can have everything happen that's supposed to happen above. Now, remember the tight calf muscles. I showed you high heels. That's a no-brainer. If you're wearing high heels, it's going to shorten your calves. But are you aware that even athletic shoes can cause a slight shortening in the calf muscle? And that's because these have a heel. You might think, well, that's not much of a heel. Look, very little difference. Doesn't have to be a lot. It can be a ½ inch, and it can cause a shortened calf muscle, and excessive pressure pushing into the toe box, so that it can aggravate bunions. It can be part of the offending factor that progresses a bunion. And, it's just not the healthiest function for the foot. So you'll hear the term zero drop a lot, and that means a shoe where that's not happening. There's no drop from the heel to the toe box. That's what the zero drop means. Should everybody be wearing zero drop shoes? I don't use the word should very often. I remember seeing a bumper sticker once that said, don't should on me. It's really going to depend on the person and what's going on in their world, what they're dealing with, how's their gait, is everything healthy. There certainly are people who wear regular athletic shoes and they don't have any foot issues and they don't have any other body issues. So I'm certainly not going to say that this is a causative factor, but I think it can play a role, and it would be a good adjunct to trying to resolve things if you've got these kind of issues going on in your body. And then when it comes to your hips, hip function, very, very important that this is internal rotation. So this is me. This foot was facing the same direction as that. We started off with those feet both pointing forward. And then this is turning in front of that foot, putting weight in that foot. And I'm going to show you how to do this in the gym in a couple minutes. And you're going to test your internal rotation. This is nice full internal rotation of this hip here. And a lot of the times people have limited internal rotation. They're shocked that they can't get a nice 90-degree angle with their feet. It's a crooked T. It's instead of a 90-degree angle, they might get a 45-degree angle or a 60-degree angle, maybe a 70 or 80, but it's not 90. And that lack of internal rotation can bite you when it comes to having a healthy gait, which you're thinking, well, I don't rotate in like that when I walk. Well, I can take a moment and sort of go through what happens when we walk when I get down in the gym. So commonly recommended treatments. There's a lot of them. And remember, these are the commonly recommended treatments. And I'm also going to show you some of the things that aren't necessarily commonly recommended. There's lots of products out there. There, all the different footwear. Your eyes would glaze over when you start doing a search for footwear for bunions. Just because somebody says they have wide shoes for bunions, not necessarily a healthy choice for bunions, because a wide shoe is not a foot-shaped shoe necessarily. So it's really important that you know that. Toe spacers. I've been doing a lot of research on these. According to the data, these can be effective at preventing progression of bunions. There's a lot of choices out there. Most of them, you're not walking in them. You're wearing them when you're not weight bearing. They're not meant for weight bearing. They're not meant for walking. There are toe spaces that are literally meant for you to even run. You could run a marathon in them, in your shoes. And they're really well designed. And then orthotics. If you've got excessive pronation, ideally you want to train the foot and improve the arch as much as you can. You've got 4 layers of muscles in your feet. And if you train the foot properly, you can improve the arches. Now, some people have the mechanics, the shape and structure of their foot is just going to kind of inhibit improving that. And that would take an expert to look at you to see if that could improve. But the cool thing is the exercises that are meant to improve these things, there's no potential harm. There's only potential benefit. So it's definitely worth trying. But if you put an orthotic in, if you decide, oh, you know what, I just, you look down, I bet, let me just see if these help me. And you're just throwing everything you can at your feet. It could be the very worst thing to do, because if you are inhibiting a healthy pronation, you're going to alter the mechanics of your gait to the point where you could really screw up your knee. You could screw up your shoulder. You could have all kinds of things happen, especially if you're somebody who likes to walk. So I don't recommend orthotics unless you seek an expert. And then again, they can only teach what they know. So there's that. And then night splinting. The data says night splinting does not prevent progression of bunions. That's the bottom line of the data. Will it help maybe with some pain? Pulling that toe over and taking some of the stress off, that's potential. But it's not really, it doesn't really work to prevent progression. So there's that. Now this is, these are surgeries, full-blown surgeries. They're coming out with different surgeries all the time. I just did a deep dive into the data behind the surgeries. There's over 100 different procedures that can be done surgically for a bunion. Over 100 different procedures, and they've all got different names. One of them is fancy, it's like Chevron. It's funny how they've all got these little different names, I guess, depending on who determined what's the best way to do the surgery. They've got some very, they're calling them minimally invasive surgeries. Typically, you're non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. You're in a surgical shoe, you're using a little scooter or crutches or a walker. But now they're coming out with things like the Lapiplasty, where you can be weight bearing pretty much right after surgery. Now that makes a big difference in your quality of life and how easy you can get around, but you're still going to be wearing a surgical shoe. You're still going to be limited. It's a very inconvenient surgery, especially if you have the type that requires you to be non-weight bearing for 6 weeks. I'm not going to go into detail of these. Like I said, I've got a video that'll be put up in the next day or two on my YouTube channel if you want to learn more about the surgeries. And then injections, they're really meant for pain. They're not going to alter the bunion itself. And then anti-inflammatories, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. Again, these are just to address the pain from the bunion. The interesting thing about the surgeries is a lot of the times people think that their foot looks really ugly. They're very embarrassed. They really want to do something about how their foot looks. So that's the cosmetic. Ideally, a surgeon won't do surgery just for cosmetic purposes. It's really meant for pain. And the interesting part is a lot of the times these surgeries, and I looked at them, a lot of the times these surgeries, you will still have pain and you will still have a cosmetic, not what you were looking for result after the surgery. So it's really important to be informed when it comes to surgeries. And then the training. Train the ankles, train the hips, train your gait so that you can improve some of the causative factors of why that bunion's there, especially if it's because of the mechanics of your body. So some strategies, the shoe wear, we can't go back to wearing baby shoes, But we can buy a foot-shaped shoe. Footwear is key. So you can see here, this is a standard shoe. So if you take your sneakers off and you put your foot on it, like this person has done, if your toes spread out beyond the outer edge of the shoes, guess what? You're jamming your shoes when you're in that. You're jamming your toes when you're in that shoe. This is a standard shoe in wide. And this is why I say wide shoes are not the best choice for bunions, because look at the difference. Here's the width of the foot here, and this is the width of the shoe. Look at the wide shoe. It's a lot wider where the width of the foot is. But if you notice, it's not really any wider where the toes are. It's still, this toe is going over the edge. This toe is going over the edge. So even though it's a wide shoe, it's not going to help with the shape of the toes. This is a foot-shaped shoe. And you can see here, it goes straight where the big toe is instead of curving in. So this is key. If you have a bunion, if you don't ever want to have a bunion, foot-shaped shoes will be your friend. This is huge.
I have a quick question. You said your toes spread out. So would you be intentionally spreading your toes out as far as you can to gauge this, or is it just how they lay when you're standing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Amy. You're not going to purposely try to spread your toes out, but if you kind of pick your other foot up so that you've got your weight on that foot, obviously hold on to something, don't lose your balance. But make sure you've got all your weight on that foot. The toes will automatically spread kind of a natural way. And yeah, really good question.
Okay.
Yes. So you want to begin with shoes that fit your foot. That's huge. That is number one strategy. And then you've got all these other strategies, but with the orthotics, you really want to be careful. You don't want to be using them if they're not absolutely necessary. And if there's another way to improve your foot, that's going to be optimal. There's all these different things that are meant to address the pain. Like if it hurts, if your bunion hurts because it's pushing against something, you can get things that cushion. You can get these night splints where it kind of pulls the toe out and keeps it from pushing in. This is another night splint. This is a toe. You can get socks that keep your toes separated. But of course, if you've got a bunion, this may not be enough. So toe spacers are recommended. This happens to be a toe spacer that you can wear in shoes and even run a marathon in. Very well designed. And you can see here, this person does have a bunion, but the toe's not pushed in because the toe spacer has it pushed out. So if the toe can be pulled away and straightened, even if you're just using your fingers, if you can pull that toe away, you've got a muscle called your flexor hallucis adductus, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain cramp here. I got so many details in my head right now. My head is getting confused. But that particular muscle, when you pull that toe away, it allows it to come away because it's an adductor muscle, which means it pulls it in. If it allows the toe to be pulled out, then you've got a really good shot, according to the experts, of reversing a bunion. Now, like I said, it could take some time. One expert who is actually an orthopedic surgeon, or he's a podorthic surgeon, so he works on feet, he's a podiatrist, but he does surgery. He reversed his own bunions. It took him 3.5 years, but he reversed them. And he's able to do that with his patient population. So I'm actually meeting with their office tomorrow because I'm going to be doing more research with them. But this is a bunion that's not going to hurt because you're pulling this over. It's straightening this out. Now, can the body absorb that bone that's kind of laid there? It's possible. Our bodies are pretty amazing. We do something called angiogenesis where it's a birth of new blood vessels to promote healing. We'll grow new blood vessels to heal a wound, and then we'll eliminate those blood vessels because they're no longer needed once the wound is healed. So our bodies are pretty amazing things. You do the right things for the body, it'll usually reward you, and give thanks. So, all right. So this is another reminder in case you came in late, you might want to register for the Bunion Challenge. I'll be going over a lot of other details and teaching a lot of movement in that. But for this particular presentation, I am going to go downstairs and I'm going to show you how to do some movements, how to assess, is my foot pronating? Is it supinating? Is it doing what it's supposed to be doing? And I'm going to show you a way to assess your hips and make sure that that they're working, that you can get that nice rotation. Okay.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That is just giving a lot of people hope, because, just the thought of having a surgery and that would be your only option, why not try something less invasive first? That just makes sense. And knowing that you're going to be giving this workshop, that's going to be dive into even more detail, but you are going to be going downstairs and helping us with the movement. So I'm really looking forward to that. And did you want to say anything else before you go down?
Why don't we do the questions now? Because I realized that I didn't do them during the slides. So
okay, well,
let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Okay, so we're going to play a game of true or false.
It's time for True or False on Be Green with Amy Live. Answer true or false to Amy's questions in the comments below, and Amy will ask our guest for the expert answer.
Okay, some of you are maybe joining us late, but some of you may already know the answers because you were watching from the beginning. So let's have some fun and find out. True or false? Bunions are inherited. Okay, Green Warriors, take a guess. And Eileen, let's go over that answer.
Well, hopefully if you were paying attention, if you didn't get here late, it is false. Researchers have confirmed. Yes, they're not inherited.
That's good to know, right?
Yeah.
All right, and here's our next question. True or false? Oh, well, Gina was paying attention. Okay, true or false? So we'll go back to our next question. Hang on a second. Wide shoes will help with bunions. What do you think, Green Warriors? Okay, they're going to type in their guesses. Okay, Eileen.
All right, and hopefully I was really clear when I talked about this. I even showed the picture. A wide shoe is wide at the middle of the foot, but it still squishes the toes. So no, wide shoes won't help with bunions. You want foot-shaped shoes, which can be wide, but a wide shoe is not necessarily foot-shaped.
Okay, well, that was a good one. And we have one more. True or false? Bunions can be reversed. What do you think, Green Warriors? Okay, Eileen.
So this is kind of an it depends. If you can pull that big toe out away from the second toe, the chances are it can be reversed.
Wow.
Yes.
That is just so encouraging. I'm really, really glad. And we got some Green Warriors typing in answers.
Yes.
So I only show the ones that they get correct. I don't put them up if they're not correct.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
I'm not going to be mean like that. So very good. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. Well, we're really encouraged by all this news because this is just something that I think people, there's Facebook groups galore about all this, and a lot of them are administered by surgeons saying, hey, I'll help you. So this is really good news.
They do their best. They really want to help people. They know how to fix it surgically. So, but the one thing I didn't mention that I forgot, Amy.
Yeah.
There is a high recurrence rate. In other words, people who have a surgery for a bunion, they have a bunionectomy, the bunion comes back. Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah, something to definitely take into consideration. Why not try something that's non-invasive first?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. You're going to go downstairs, and we're going to I'm going to talk to them while you're going downstairs, and we are going to see Eileen in just a little bit. And so, Green Warriors, while Eileen is going downstairs to get ready to show and demonstrate the movements that are going to help us with bunions. I'm really excited about that. But while she's doing that, if you guys want to go ahead and type any questions that you might have for her in the comments, and we'll take those in just a little bit. Oh, and here we have, get you back here. All right.
Here. Okay, so what I wanted to show was we talked about if you walk with your foot turned out, it's required for that big toe to push out of the way in order for you to come forward with your foot. So that's going to promote that big toe constantly being pushed into the second toe. Now, will that cause every single person who does kind of a duck walk to have a bunion? Not necessarily. I'm just going to have to lower my screen a little bit here because it's the reflection of the light is blinding me. So not necessarily, but if you do have a bunion or a propensity to bunions, if you have seen your grandparents and your parents and everybody you know in your family has them, and you've got the same structure of a body or a foot, you might want to kind of change your gait. Typically, that might be learned as a kid. You know, you're walking after grandpa and you're just learning how to do that. Or it could be that, and over years, these muscles can shorten in the hips, which means your feet automatically kind of, even when you're just standing there, your feet are turned out because those muscles have shortened. Sort of like, you know, ballet dancers, when they do the plie, right? Those muscles can shorten a little bit. So I'm going to show you to see, can you get nice internal rotation on your hip? So the goal of that is to get that nice 90-degree angle of your feet. So my right foot right now looks like the top of a capital letter T, and my left foot looks like the vertical bar of a capital letter T. So when I look down, I'm making that nice capital letter T. Now, the front foot, you know, the top of the capital letter, you want that knee to be nice and relaxed, kind of bent a little bit. You want to be putting weight into that foot because you don't want to aggravate the knee of the leg that's not moving. So you want that to be nice and soft and relaxed. And so I'm coming around here, and as that knee bends, you know, I can point all the way behind me. Now you'll notice if I'm forward this way and then I go this way, as long as you've got full motion, you'll notice as you turn, you're going to be pulling your weight kind of on the outside edge of the left foot. That's supination. We want that nice supination. We want that. If we do the opposite motion, which is me turning this way and rotating this way, that's pronation. So that you think of like you're making a capital letter L, and I'll turn this way so it makes sense to you. So one foot's that way, one foot's this way. So they're 90-degree angle. So if I rotate to the right, my left foot is pronating. The weight is coming down on the inside of the foot. So the arch is collapsing and the foot is pronating. Pronation is healthy and required for an optimal gait. It's when it's excessive pronation, the foot is completely flat, it doesn't come out of pronation, that we end up with problems. But we want to be able to pronate. That's why if you just decide to put an orthotic in your shoe, you could be doing more harm than good because you're stopping pronation or you're limiting it, and it could be really snowballing and causing more harm. So if I rotate right, my left foot is pronating. If I rotate left, my right foot is pronating. So go ahead and notice, do they feel about the same? Are you getting a nice pronation on both sides? Do they feel the same, or do they feel different? And if you don't even want to go into the letter L, you can just have your feet forward and just rotate. And so if I rotate, so if my feet are forward and I rotate to the right as much as I can and point behind me, my right foot is supinating. It's the weight's going on the outer edge, and my left foot is pronating. The weight's going on the inner edge. So you can feel that. And then when I rotate left, I'm getting the opposite. My right foot is pronating and my left foot is supinating. So notice if they feel the same or different. In other words, when you rotate right, how are those ankles feeling? And when you rotate left, how are those ankles feeling? If you notice there's a big difference, depending on which way you're rotating, then you've got an asymmetry. You've got something that's not quite right, maybe got its knickers in a twist, and it's going to come back to bite you at some point if it's ignored. Your brain is already compensating because of it, not telling you what it's doing, but whatever you're training in, whatever the majority of your activity, any kind of physical activity, exercise, sport, yoga, whatever, you're probably training in some dysfunction because your body's compensating and you don't know you're compensating. And nobody wants to train in dysfunction. We want to train in function, not dysfunction. So there is a difference. So that's the supination, pronation part, and the internal rotation of the hip. That's huge. Now, dorsiflexion, we talked about that. A lot of people are lacking dorsiflexion. And I also mentioned inversion, eversion of the heel. So I don't want all these names to make your eyes glaze over. I don't want you to feel like deer in headlights. Doesn't matter if you know the names. You can sense the movement and tell what you're feeling. And so dorsiflexion is when I step forward, can I keep that heel down and that knee straight? Or does it want to do this? If it wants to do this, we've got some issues. There's some dorsiflexion lacking in that ankle. So, and you can hold on to a wall. This isn't a magic trick. You don't have to be able to good at balance or stability to do this. But how far can you come forward and still keep that heel down? So right now, I come this far. I can feel my calf muscle getting longer, but it's not painful. I can feel a good stretch going on, but I'm keeping the heel down and my knee is straight. So now that's dorsiflexion because the toes are coming toward the calf. Now, a lot of people, when they stretch their calf muscles, they do it non-weight bearing. They'll do this. They might even put this around under the foot, right? And they'll pull up, they'll get that nice stretch. Well, I'm here to tell you right now that is relatively useless because it's not weight bearing. Everything changes when the foot hits the ground. When you go to take a step, when you land on your heel, ideally you want to be dorsiflexing, and that's when that heel everts. When you land on your heel, the heel, because of the shape of the heel bone goes that way slightly. This is a small motion. And as soon as it goes that way, there's a bone on top of it that drops down. And when that bone drops down, your shin bone turns in, internal rotation. And when your shin bone turns in, your thigh bone turns in. So you've got this chain reaction that occurs from the time your heel hits the ground, everything is happening. And when that heel bone goes out, that's when your foot pronates. You get that nice, flexible, shock-absorbing foot surface so that if you're outside, it's an uneven surface or there's a little pebble under there or something's going on. You don't want to shock your body every time you land on your heel. You want it to absorb shock. So we want that eversion and pronation. We want that. When a healthy amount, we want it to stop at the right time and come out of it at the right time. So all that happens, everything turns in, your pelvis rotates as well. Your trunk is doing the opposite because we do opposite foot and arm. So once all that rotation comes up and switches all the muscles on, it ends up reversing from up above, going back down. And by the time you go to push off your toe, ideally with the big toe being in the proper position, when you go to push off your toe, everything now is happening the opposite. The muscles here, the bones have rotated out, external rotation. The shin bone rotates out. The bone on top of the heel rotates up and out. The heel bone inverts and it pulls the arch up in the foot. And you have that beautiful, solid, bony foot surface so that you can push off your toe with strength and control. That happens, all that happens from the time you land on your heel till the time you push off your toe. So what if you got hip issues? What if you got something going on in the pelvis? What if you got something else happening in the ankle? All that up and down isn't going to happen. You could even have limited trunk rotation, and that would impact your gait. A lot of people like to walk with their hands in their pockets or their arms like this. They're inhibiting their trunk rotation, and they're making a difference. Those people might end up with some pain in their knees, maybe even hip pain when they're walking, because they've impacted that rotation that needs to happen. You really want just a nice, healthy arm swing when you're walking. You want that nice, healthy swing. You don't want to be inhibiting that, because that's very good for the trunk. So, and sometimes you want to exaggerate that swing and really get everything going, because it's going to make you feel better. And you'll notice people who do like power walking, they're doing an exaggerated swing. And that's a good thing. They're really waking up those muscles, and they're getting all those joints and those biomechanics to move healthy. So you want to be able to dorsiflex. And remember, I showed you that picture. I'll finish with this. Remember that picture I showed you with the 3 planes of motion? You want your ankle to be able to go into that dorsiflexion, and you want it to be able to do it in all 3 planes of motion. Now, the one plane where we bend forward or back, arms go like this, legs go like this, that's sagittal plane. That's this. That's pure sagittal plane dorsiflexion. So we want that. Okay? So that's one. And you can hang on to something. You can hang on to, I usually tell people to do it in front of a wall, but you can be hanging on to a chair and just have your hips come forward. You want to drive in and out of the motion. You want a nice dynamic load and unload. You don't want to just hang out here and count to 30. That's not how we walk. I don't take a step and wait 30 seconds before I take another step. So you want to train where it's appropriate. So you want the hips to go forward. You want to really load those hips. Don't do a push-up. Have the hips. Then let's add that side component. Remember, we move sideways. We move sideways. Remember the snow angel I talked about, right? If we're laying down in the snow. So that would be, if I'm holding onto a chair or a kitchen counter or the wall, that would be you come forward first to load, and then you go side to side. And I always tease people, and I say this isn't the hula, because I'll see some people just doing this. You want the body to move, kind of like you're tapping parallel bars with your hips. You want the upper body to counterbalance. And this is going to help to promote that inversion, eversion of the heel, which is what we want. And then the last one is that rotation. And you're going to get in that same position, and you're going to turn. So you come forward to load, and then you rotate. And this is supination, pronation, supination, pronation. And a lot of the times people will think, oh, but if I'm excessively pronated, I don't want to go into pronation. You actually do, because as you go into pronation and you stop at the right time and pull out of it, you're training those tendons to control the motion and stop it at the right time and pull you out of it. So, and that's what we want with a healthy gait. So, all right. I hope that helped everybody. And I'm happy to answer any questions, Amy, if that's appropriate or.
Oh, sure. Oh, everybody click like for Eileen. That was just a wonderful, informative demonstration that you just did now. And of course, your presentation was absolutely outstanding as usual. And let's go into the chat and see what we have. Okay, so Mona said, will the exercise decrease the size of my bunion?
That is something that, as I mentioned earlier, and you may not have caught it because I did say a lot of things, will the body kind of resorb the excess bone that's been laid down? What happens is when the big toe comes over the first ray of the foot, so if the first ray is here and this is the big toe goes over, the first ray ends up doing that, and then we get the big bump formed here. Will the body absorb that bump? I haven't seen enough research to show that will happen. I'm going to be, like I said, communicating with the experts. I certainly don't have all the answers. I do know that it makes sense mechanically. If that toe can be pulled out, it makes sense mechanically that that can be improved in the position of the big toe improving the gait and the biomechanics. About that bump being absorbed, I'm not sure yet. I can honestly say I don't know at this point, but I'm believing that the human body, I do know that we can create bone spurs. There's this thing called Wolff's Law, where bone grows according to the stresses placed upon it. And a lot of the times people will have bony spurs like in their spine, on their vertebrae and that kind of thing. And when they do an x-ray or an MRI, they'll tell the person, oh, you've got all these spurs in there. That's why you've got pain. Let's go in there and clean them up surgically. Well, unfortunately, those spurs are your body's attempt to try to make an unstable spine more stable. And so now what you're doing is you're cleaning up the spurs, making you unstable again. What you really need to do is develop strength and train your body properly so that you're more stable. And then the body won't need those spurs anymore. And will it absorb them? Unfortunately, nobody's going to spend all the money it takes to do those studies. So hopefully that helps answers in some way. But I think the most important thing is to get the toe straight, to improve the gait, eliminate the reason for the pain. And then whatever else we get after that, I think is icing on the cake.
Yep, I agree. Very good. Now, Gina started off with 2 words, silly question. And there is no silly question here.
No, there's not.
Okay. Is having hard skin on the large toe or the outer part of the foot the start of a bunion?
So I think she's talking about a callus, like maybe developing a callus.
Yeah,
That potentially could be what she's saying. So that would be where there's some abnormal friction happening, abnormal weight bearing. I can't definitively say that that's the start of a bunion, because there are people who have bunions and they don't have calluses. I do know that if you're seeing a callus in different places on the foot, there's abnormal pressure happening. There's abnormal friction. So you would definitely want to do what you can to stop that, for sure.
Yeah. And again, like you had said about the shoes, maybe we all just need to take a look at our shoes and see if
Yes. As you can see, I have foot-shaped shoes on.
I'll get you on a full screen. Do that again. Show us.
Foot-shaped shoes.
Foot-shaped shoes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Baby foot-shaped shoes.
Yes.
Right? Shaped like a baby's foot.
Yes,
Okay.
It's straight at my big toe, and it gives my toes room to spread and nothing is squished.
Wow. Yeah. I remember when I first began working in an office, and I was doing a lot of walking because I lived in a big city, and I started to wear heels and those pumps, the closed-toed pumps. And I remember my father saying to me, "Why are you walking around with your foot shoved into a funnel?"
Yeah. Yeah. I wore those pointed toe heels for years.
Yeah. Of course, when you're young,
Yeah.
it's not going to happen to me, kind of thing. But it's still, it makes me think about that, because that's basically what you're doing, right? Is putting your foot inside of the funnel.
Right.
Okay.
And I'll be completely honest, because I always I don't want people to think I think I know it all. I did my profession prior to going to college. I was on my feet all the time. I was in the service industry, in the food service industry. And I wore heels a lot. And the problem, I did develop a bunion on my right foot, not on my left foot, just my right foot. So my thought is I must have hung out like this a lot when I was standing at the service counter.
Oh, wow.
So all my weight was on that foot more than, because my left foot looks perfect. There's nothing. So, but my right foot, I do have it's very minimal. I have no pain now. I used to have pain decades ago, but I stopped wearing high heels. I stopped shoving my feet into tiny shoes, and I always bought wide shoes, not knowing that it wasn't really allowing my toes to spread. And so now I'm planning on doing some like investigative journalism and seeing if I can reverse my small minimal bunion by the steps that are recommended by the experts. So maybe a year from now, Amy, you can come me back on and I can show you my before and after picture.
Oh yeah, that would be very interesting follow-up.
But I do have the toe spreaders in this shoe, which it allows comfortably. So my big toe is aligned properly in this shoe because of the toe spacers. Yes. So
wow. Very good. Very good. All right, let's see. Okay, Nima said, I have a traitor bunion on the other side of the foot. I can't wear any of my shoes now because I'm in agony.
I think she means a bunionette, a tailor's bunion. That might be it. The baby toe can have a bunion. And again, that's the same thing. The shoe is jamming that baby toe big time. So foot shape, and of course, I'm not advising or treating this person, but generally speaking, the foot shaped shoes, toe spacers can make a huge difference. There won't be any pressure against the toe. It'll be aligned properly. And I think that most people feel a huge difference and a relief of the pain.
Wow. And Chrissy said, my right foot has a severe bunion deformity and my big toe overcrosses the second toe. Can the exercises help me?
Yes, getting the right shoes, getting I shouldn't say yes. If that toe can be pulled out, like if you can take your fingers and bring that toe away from the second toe and put it back in the proper position with your hand, then the experts say that that can improve with the right strategies without surgery.
So that's our litmus test.
Yes.
Take your shoe off and see if you can do that. And that would be great. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's just see. I think we have, Gina said, developed metatarsophalangia because of bunion on my left foot, had custom orthotics made in July, adjustments made twice, new set made 2 weeks ago, and the you probably pronounce it better than I do, tarsalgia continues.
Metatarsalgia, yeah.
Okay, tarsalgia. Okay,
yes.
So bunion surgery, so conflicted.
Yes. Metatarsalgia, that's a lot of pain in the ball of the foot. There's a lot of issues going on. The nerves get annoyed because there's inflammation. There's a lot of things that can happen to our foot. Our foot is so complex. The foot and the ankle is the most complex part of the body, because you've got your ankle joint proper, you've got your subtalar joint, you've got a joint between the midfoot and the rear foot, and the midfoot and the forefoot. Oh my gosh, the foot is so complex, and it's weight bearing. And we stick it in shoes and we don't allow the muscles to do anything. So, I've heard experts say that a shoe is kind of like a coffin for your foot. Everything's going to die. It's going to lose its function. I will tell you that because I work from home, most of my work I'm done at a computer, unless I'm actively teaching my academy classes and my movement classes and things, I'm barefoot. I'm barefoot all day long. I just don't have shoes on. So, and I know I've worked with some people who, when they started training and they started going barefoot and they started training in rotation because they were told they shouldn't rotate, all these different things, when they started restoring proper function, they noticed that their foot just improved dramatically. Like they started to get an arch in their foot. They started to notice these things. They couldn't believe the difference and how much better they felt. So I think a lot of the things that we do to try to protect the foot end up being kind of like our nemesis. It sort of creates the problem that we don't want. So I'm certainly not telling this person to go barefoot and ignore everything they're told by their healthcare practitioner. But there may be some things that could help if they sought out a different professional. If you go to 4 doctors, you're going to get 4 different opinions.
Yeah.
So who do you listen to, and who do you but to me, Amy, I always say the litmus test when you're working with somebody is how long have you been doing what you're doing? And how many people have you helped? That, I don't care if they wrote a best-selling book. I don't care if they wrote 3 best-selling books. Are they working with people, and have they helped them? And what can we say that about Dr. John McDougall? God bless his heart for having done what he did his entire life. Dr. T. Colin Campbell, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. I mean, I could go on and on.
They've helped more people than most practicing physicians have helped that met patients in person. Those doctors that we were talking about have helped more people.
Exactly. I mean, it's their track record speaks for itself.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying I'm in their category. I would never, ever attempt to say that. But I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen a lot of people get their life back by doing the right things the right way. It makes a difference.
Wow. Yep. I think so. And you have a wonderful book, and we're going to be talking about that too. But Green Warrior, please click like to show your appreciation for what Eileen shared with us today. And Eileen, tell us about what you do and how we can find you on social media. And I'm going to show that because I have a copy of your wonderful book, Pain Culprits, and I'm excited that you're going to be coming out with another book as well.
Yes.
This is an excellent book for anybody that wants to know not just about the foot, but many parts of the body and what you can do about it. Okay, go ahead and tell us about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a trained physical therapist, but my training is very eclectic. I've always kind of thought outside the box and sought experts who are really successful at what they do. So as soon as I think even before I got my license, I heard some experts and I'm like, okay, I want to do what they're doing. So as soon as I got licensed, I started training under those people. So I've been really blessed to be able to be very effective in what I do right from the start, but not because I'm so smart, because I was really blessed to find these amazing people and do what they do, learn what they do. And so the first 15 years of what I did, I put my hands on people. Everything was manual. If I had to make sure their mechanics were right. The second 15 years of my profession, I've learned how to teach people how to fix themselves through movement and other self-care strategies that changes the mechanics of the body, changes the postural alignment, does phenomenal things, and I don't have to put my hands on them. So it's really empowered me to change so many lives. So that's really what gets me excited. What gets me out of bed in the morning is to get people out of pain and to help them to age really well. I have an online academy. I call them my students, but the average age is 70. And oh my gosh, just a couple of weeks ago, we did a workout that was 90 squats in 7.5 minutes. And most of the students in the class did them full squats. Some of them had to modify, not go down as low, maybe hold on, but it doesn't matter how old you are. So I just finished writing my second book called Aging Culprits. And I submitted it for the professional editing yesterday to the publisher. And hopefully it will be ready to purchase this fall. That's the goal. So, but I can be found. I've got a YouTube channel. Just type in my name on YouTube. And I do have the Bunion Challenge coming up. That's my main website, havelifelongwellbeing.com. If you go on there, you'll find out more about me. And I've got a couple of online trainings. I've got the MWP Private Club, which provides you a way to assess yourself. It's a 23-minute video on there where you can assess your own movement. It's completely free membership. And then you can also start training in 3-plane function, authentic movement that most people find phenomenally helpful. And then there is a paid level membership should that meet your needs and you decide you'd like to go for that. So I have lots of options, a lot of stuff that's free because I want the world to know about this. I feel as passionate as those other professionals that I mentioned a moment ago about changing lives. Just the thought of people being in pain can sometimes keep me up at night. I want to erase pain from the world. I know I need a really big eraser, but people like you, Amy, are allowing me to get the message out there. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Well, thank you so much, Eileen, for sharing your expertise and enlightening us on the natural methods to reverse bunions. That's just fantastic.
Yes.
So, Eileen, what's your final take-home message for our Green Warriors?
My final message is please don't allow anyone to treat you as a body part that walks through the door. Everything is connected to everything else. And they need to understand that in order to really be able to help you. If they're just seeing you as a body part, they're going to be limited in how much they can help. If you're going to just treat symptoms, you're going to be very limited in your success. And it's kind of like playing, like we said earlier, Amy, it's like playing whack-a-mole with your body. Something's going to happen, you're going to whack that one. Something else pops up, you whack that. Something else. You don't want to play whack-a-mole with your body. You want to treat your body as a whole and train it properly and authentically. And it's not that hard to do, and it doesn't take 4 hours a day. So, yes.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much for that. That's very good. Green Warrior, tell us what you're going to remember from today's presentation. One of my takeaways is that even athletic shoes can cause aggravation to bunions. Who knew? Wow. I also wanted to thank Jess Task Voice. She did the promo and she did the countdown. And for those of you that follow me, you know that we had Angela who was supposed to do our broadcast today. And at the last moment, she had to go do something. And Eileen was gracious enough to jump in at the very last moment. And Jess Task Voice at the very last moment changed all the promos for us. And I really want to thank her very much for coming in so quickly and doing that. And thank Eileen again for helping us out to give great quality.
My pleasure. I adore Angela, and I know she'll be on soon as your guest, and everybody will love her.
So Jess Task Voice, tell us who's coming up next.
Do you struggle with back pain? Discover effective strategies to manage and prevent back pain. Join us as we uncover the secrets to achieving lifelong spinal health with Peter Rogers, MD, Wednesday, July 31st, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, on Be Green with Amy Live.
Right. So now Dr. Rogers is not going to tell you about mechanical things that you can do because that's Eileen's specialty, but he's going to tell you about the microbiology of it and get a deep dive into it. So we have a lot of things. And we also have that Eileen was here helping us learn about the back. And I'll put links to that in the show notes about the mechanics of the back. So we've got lots of information for you, Green Warriors. That's what we're here to do, is to give you lots of different angles and enriching learning experiences. And I really want to thank you, Green Warrior, for joining us today. Your engagement and your support make these discussions meaningful and impactful. And I hope you're feeling inspired to take a closer look at your food choices and your shoe choices and make some positive changes for your health and well-being. And remember, every bite we take and every step we take is an opportunity to nourish our bodies and heal and become the healthiest versions of ourselves. And please stay tuned for more empowering content. And please subscribe to my channel and check out Eileen's as well and share my message with others that can benefit, because together as Green Warriors, we really can make a meaningful difference in the world. And I wanted to give a special thank you to you, Green Warrior, because you're here and that's why we're here. And I wanted to offer you 5 free recipes, SOS free, and just go to begreenwithamy.com/join and I will send them to you. And now I would like to invite all of you to take your right hand and grab your left shoulder and take your left hand and grab your right shoulder and squeeze, because that's a hug from me to you and from me to you, Eileen. You saved the day for us.
My pleasure. Yes.
And if you want to join me and Eileen as we do my tagline, you can type it in the comments. Are you ready, Eileen?
I'm ready.
Okay. Until I see all of you again, remember, be strong, be well, and be green. Thank you, Green Warrior. Thank you so much, Eileen. Come back soon, everyone.
Yes.
Looking for really tasty recipes that are SOS free? No sugar, oil, or salt. How can it taste good? Well, if you like flavor, then you'll love this Be Green with Amy recipe ebook. Get your copy today. Click on the link in the show notes. Be strong, be well, and be green.